Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for a Tax Practitioners Board webinar. My name is Ashley Dowsard, and I'm hosting today's session. Today I'm joining you from Ngunnawal and Ngambri country. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, water, and community. I'd like to pay my respect to them, their cultures and elders, past and present. To begin, I have some quick housekeeping messages. First, to access today's slide, you can visit our webinar resources hub at tpb.gov.au/webinar-hub. We'll also email you a copy of slides throughout the webinar. Today's webinar counts towards your continuing professional education or CPE, and you can claim 1 hour for attending. In relation to claiming your CPE, we'll issue an attendance certificate to those of you staying online for the webinar today. In today's webinar, we will provide an overview of recent changes to the Tax Agent Services Act 2009 or TASA. We'll provide information on why the registration period is changing from the 1st of July. You'll find out what it means for you, and we'll also walk you through the streamlined renewal process. At the end of the webinar, we'll dedicate some time to answering your questions. To help you with that, we have Madeline from our Policy and Legislation team and Rodney from Client Services joining us. They'll be responding to your questions as we go, so please submit them via the Q&A. To find the Q&A, simply hover your mouse over the screen and a range of icons will appear on the bottom of your screen. We'll be turning off the chat once we get going and won't be monitoring it throughout the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. TPB board member Deborah Anderson and our Client Services Director Christine Gordon. Welcome to you both. Now I'll hand over to you to kick things off, Deborah.
Thank you, Ashley, and good morning or good afternoon, sorry, to everybody. It's good to see so many familiar names in the online chat already. So let's start by looking at some of the changes to the law that the government have announced recently. Some of those changes have already commenced and some of those changes will start later this year. So the passage of the Treasury Laws Amendment Act 2023 late last year was the first legislative step to implement some of the recommendations arising from the James Review. The James Review was a 2019 post, not implementation, but, you know, from when the TPB had been made in 2009. It was an independent review into the effectiveness of the TPB and also the TASA to ensure that our legislative framework remains fit for purpose. These changes have either started or will be rolled out throughout the rest of the year. So firstly, the Code of Conduct has expanded, and that is to prevent tax practitioners from employing or using a disqualified entity without our approval. So a disqualified entity is an agent that has been terminated by the TPB. It will also prevent tax practitioners from entering into arrangements with disqualified entities. And this is now in effect, and it became a requirement on the 1st of January. Another change is the Minister now has the ability to expand the code to include additional obligations on tax and BAS agents that they must comply with to address any emerging or existing behaviours and practices. There's also a change to the registration period for tax practitioners, and this is from at least every 3 years to at least every year. And I will talk about that in a little bit more detail, as will Christine. There's also the breach reporting regime, which requires that tax practitioners need to self-report significant breaches of the code and also report significant breaches by other registered tax practitioners. Updating the objects clause is another change. So the TPB's role has now been expanded to say that we are supporting the public trust and confidence in the integrity of the tax profession and the tax system. Another change was that the TPB's financial independence, well, we now have financial independence from the ATO. So even though we are separate from the ATO, we have been using the one bank account up until until the end of this month, actually. But on the 1st of July, we get our own bank account. And Christine will touch on that later, because although it doesn't really impact tax practitioners, it may impact or will impact where you make your payments when you're paying for your annual registration. And finally, the changes also say that the board members that are appointed to the TPB must meet the definition of community representatives. So these changes were introduced to enhance the TPB's effectiveness and independence and to assist us to raise community confidence in the integrity of the whole tax and super system, as well as the tax profession. So now I'll have a look at some of the key changes that are coming up. So the first one I'm going to look at is annual registration. This impacts every single tax and BAS agent, and also for those of you who are new or thinking of becoming a registered tax or BAS agent. So in the James review, one of the recommendations was that the registration period for tax and BAS agents be converted to an annual period to reduce the regulatory burden on practitioners that are renewing their registration, and that the annual registration fee should be prorated in comparison to the current fee for the 3-year period, which means basically the annual fee should be 1/3. So the annual registration was one of the components of the Treasury Laws Amendments Act that I mentioned earlier, and it was passed in November last year. So starting on the 1st of July, the registration period for tax practitioners will occur on an annual basis. Now, a lot of you may see that annual registration is an additional burden to you, but this process will provide many benefits, and it will actually save you time. So the annual registration process has been designed to be pre-filled, it's best practice, and it's a contemporary registration system. And we recognise we need to adhere to legislation, but we also want the registration process to be quick and easy for tax practitioners. So to address the concerns about the perceived onerous nature of annual registration, the following benefits will be observed. So the first one is the process is streamlined. The guidelines that I've been given say that it will take up to 30 minutes to renew your registration depending on your circumstances. I have just had to renew both my personal and my company registration in the last couple of months, and I've used this system, and it took me minutes. Definitely not 30 minutes. I would say less than 5 each, but I had all my documentation with me and ready to go. Christine's going to go through the documentation that you'll need. It's not onerous. So listen to her a little later, take those notes, and I promise it'll be really quick and easy for you too. The form will be pre-populated with all the information that we already know. And so you just need to either confirm or update it. So that'll make it a lot quicker. You will also be able to update with us any changes of information or circumstances when you renew. Now, you can still do that. You can do it through our Contact Us page, or you can do it through your practitioner portal. But at least this way, every year, you'll have that opportunity to update it at annual registration. We're also hoping that, I know when you're doing it every 3 years, you forget. when it comes up or when it's due, because it was such a long time ago. So, this way you'll renew it every year. You'll remember when your renewal is. You'll be able to put it in your diary. So that'll make it a lot easier for you as well. And, if you're not using a password manager or something like that, it will also mean that you're less likely to forget your password or user details. We've also aligned it so that the registration process better aligns with other government organisations across the Commonwealth. And importantly, the annual registration will not impact things like your professional indemnity insurance or your CPE requirements. They all stay the same. So how will it change your registration? As I said, it starts from the 1st of July 2024. So it won't impact your current registration period, and you will remain registered until your current registration is due for renewal. So if you renew your registration before the 1st of July 2024, you will still remain registered for 3 years. So if you just paid it last week, don't worry, you haven't just paid and lost it. It means you will stay registered for another 3 years, which is 2027. If you renew your registration after the 1st of July 2024, you will be registered for 1 year. And so your renewal will be due again in 2025. I'm pleased to say we can now confirm that the fee payable for the annual registration will be prorated. That was just announced yesterday. So the annual fee has been taken and divided by 3 to make, the 3-year fee has been taken, divided by 3 to make the annual payment. And as per normal, the CPI uplift is in there. So the annual registration for tax agents as of the 1st of July will be $273, and for BAS agents will be $54. The good news, as I said, is that it doesn't impact your existing registration, but it also doesn't impact your existing registration requirements. And as I mentioned earlier, that means your CPE stays the same, your professional indemnity requirements all stay exactly the same. The CPE period continues to align with your registration date, unless you've nominated to do it in a yearly in a calendar year or a financial year. And you can also align it with your professional association if you'd like to as well. And obviously, in recognition of annual registration, the TPB's annual declaration process will now be retired. So that will no longer be a requirement for practitioners. For any potential practitioners joining us today, know that this change in legislation applies to both new registrations and renewal applications for all tax and BAS agents applications submitted on or after the 1st of July 2024. And to accommodate the shorter registration period, the TPB have been given a maximum of 4 months to process and determine the outcome of a new registration application, whereas previously that was 6 months. If an applicant doesn't receive a final decision within that 4 months, the application is considered to be rejected. And for renewal of registration, practitioners can continue working under your current registration until we reach a decision on your renewal.
Thank you, Deborah. That was really helpful information. Really appreciate that. I think we'll change gears now a little bit and move on to discussing how tax practitioners can renew their registration. So, Christine, I know that your team get a lot of inquiries about renewals, so it would be really great if I can hand over to you now to explain the TPB streamlined renewal process. Over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Let's dive in straight away. When it comes to renewing your registration, your online renewal form will be available in my profile about 90 days before your renewal expiry date. But don't worry, we'll contact you via email or SMS and to let you know when it's time to renew. And that's why it's extremely important to keep your contact details up to date with us. You don't want to miss any of those important reminders. You can do this quickly and easily by visiting my profile at tpb.gov.au/my profile or doing a search on our website. When you receive your reminders to renew, you must make sure to renew at least 30 days before your registration expires. It's important to know that if you forget to renew your registration on time and your registration expires, you cannot provide tax agent or BAS services for a fee or other reward. You will lose access to the ATO online services, such as online services for agents. If this happens, you need to lodge a new registration application from scratch and wait for a decision to be made. Okay, so some things to do before you renew as an individual. Let's look at those things you need to do. If you haven't already verified your identity with us, you must complete a one-off proof of identity process at renewal. I'll talk more about this later. You also need to confirm you've completed the required amount of continuing professional education, have professional indemnity insurance in place. You will need to provide the details of your current policy if you haven't already told us. And if you're relying on a voting membership, you need to be a voting member of a recognised professional association to gain your registration. You need to have those details handy as well. Need to confirm the details of your relevant experience and check your contact details and let us know if anything has changed and provide details of any events that may affect your eligibility for registration, including any tax obligations. Okay, so things to do before you renew as a partnership or a company. If you're renewing as a partnership or a company registration, you need to provide details of your current professional indemnity insurance policy, your sufficient number of registered individual tax or BAS agents, any directors and partners who are not registered as individual tax or BAS agents, and again, any events that affect your eligibility for registration, including overdue tax obligations. I'll just note here, as part of the changes coming into effect from the 1st of July around annual registrations and enhancements to the TBB register, if a partnership or company adds or removes a supervising agent, the agent will receive an email advising them that they've been added or removed. So when somebody is added, the email advises them of their responsibility as a supervising agent and provides them with an opportunity to decline the nomination. When someone is removed as a supervising agent, the email advises them of the removal and what to do if the request has been submitted in error. Okay, so multi-factor authentication. When you log into my profile to complete your renewal, you will also need to complete the multi-factor authentication process, or MFA for short. MFA adds a layer of protection when assessing your account and helps prevent it being accessed by an unauthorised third party. You are most likely familiar with MFA, as many apps and online programs use this method of authentication. But if you need help or have questions, check our FAQs or instructional video on our website. You'll see the link there on the slide. We'll also send this to you after the webinar. So my profile. Once logged into my profile, On the left-hand side menu under Action Required, you will see that your renewal is ready to complete. Simply click the link and you'll be directed to the renewal form. Okay, so now you're ready to complete your renewal. Check that the pre-populated information is correct on the renewal application page. This will include any conditions or sanctions imposed on your registration and rejections of renewal for integrity issues that have occurred in the last 5 years. Confirm your legal name at the bottom of the page and simply click Next. If any of the previous legal names are incorrect or not displayed, you will need to notify us via our Update Legal or Practice Name online form. Please make sure you provide evidence of any previous name change. For example, you can attach a change of name certificate or marriage certificate. We will notify you once we process your request so that you can continue with your renewal application. Another reform change that is worth noting here is that from the 1st of July, we will also be required to include any previous names or registration numbers a tax practitioner has had during the past 5 years on the TBB register. This change offers greater protection for consumers looking to engage a tax practitioner. Okay, let's look at some key points to note while you're completing your renewal. If you have all the essential information on hand, the renewal process, as Deb mentioned earlier, should take you less than 30 minutes to complete. As I mentioned, your form is automatically populated with information you provided to us. Simply confirm or update the information. Your form will automatically save as you complete each field, so you can leave and return to your renewal at any time through My Profile. Before you can submit the form, you must upload all documentation and pay your application fee in full. When attaching electronic copies of documents, accepted formats are Word, JPEG, PNG and PDFs. Once you've submitted your completed renewal, a confirmation will be sent to the email address you've provided. We may need to contact you to request further supporting information. Once you've read and understood the information on this page, click Next to move on. The next screen will show you your registration details. Importantly, the information you've provided on this page that is identified with a capital R must be included on the TPB public register. This includes your registered tax practitioner name and business name, your address, any relevant professional affiliations, such as TBB recognised professional associations, the duration of registration, any condition on the registration, any sanction other than a caution or termination being imposed by the board. Confirm all your details here, and if any details are incorrect or need updating, you can do this by visiting My Profile at tpb.gov.au/myprofile. So once everything's correct, click Next. Proof of identity. As we've talked about this earlier, if you haven't already verified your identity with us, next you'll be asked to complete your one-off proof of identity process. This helps protect your personal information and aligns with Australian government standards. Importantly, if you are unable to provide proof of identity, you will not be able to submit your renewal. To complete your proof of identity or POI, you should make sure your legal name on the identity documents you're using is exactly the same as the name you used to register with us. If your legal name on your identity documents is incorrect, you must contact the responsible government agency to have your name corrected before undertaking POI. If your legal name on the TPB register is incorrect, contact us via our change registration form. And you can do that through our website. If you need help with POI process, check out our video at tpb.gov.au/POI. It provides some helpful tips to assist you. Okay, next is professional indemnity insurance. This is something you'll need to update and update all the details. If you have your own PI or professional indemnity insurance cover, you will need the policy number, the name of the insurer, the start and end date of the policy, the amount of the cover. If you are covered by the professional indemnity insurance policy of another registered tax agent, you will need their name and registered tax practitioner number. Once you've entered the required information, click Next to continue. Registration conditions. Here are any conditions that the TPB has placed on your registration will appear. Depending upon your qualifications and experience, you may have a condition imposed on your registration. And this could be when you lodge a new application or during while you renew an application. This limits the scope of services you can provide or limits your services to a particular area of taxation law. If no condition applies, simply select No and click to the next button. Add a condition. If you need to add a condition, there are lots of conditions in the pull down pop-up screen, and you select what that condition is. Here the relevant condition from the drop down screen and click Save. The condition will now appear on your registration form and you can select Next to progress. Relevant experience. You will need to confirm your relevant experience. This will be pre-populated based on the registration option you choose when you first registered. Simply confirm you meet the requirement and select Next. For further information regarding relevant experience requirements, you can visit our website. We'll send a link to this content after the webinar. If for any reason you do not meet the relevant experience requirements, you will need to get in touch with us. Associated membership. Next, if you are a member of a recognised professional association, you will need to provide the details here. You can also remove a previous membership or update the details of an existing one. Make sure you have your membership number handy. Membership is not a registration requirement unless you have used it to gain registration. For example, under registration pathway 206 for tax agents or 102 for BAS agents. If you are renewing your registration under these pathways and for any reason you are not a voting member of a recognised professional association, you will need to get in touch with us via our Contact Us form at tpb.gov.au/contact. If you are a member of a recognised professional association, be sure to attach your evidence. Once you've done that, simply click Next. Continuing professional education. To complete your renewal, you'll also need to confirm that you meet the continuing professional education, or CPE for short. That requirement is relevant to your registration. If you've completed the requirements, select Yes and click Next. If for any reason you have not met the requirements, you need to get in touch with us. And again, the best way is through the Contact Us form at tbb.gov.au/contact. And look, that's just going into the website and contacting us. And just a reminder here, CPE for a standard tax agent registration is 120 hours, and for a BAS agent, it is 90 hours. This must be completed over a 3-year period, and you must also complete a minimum of 20 hours per year. This will not change when we move to annual registration. Fit and proper requirements. Okay, so next you need to confirm that you are fit and proper person. This includes acknowledging that there are no matters that affect your good fame, integrity and character, such as being an undischarged bankrupt, being sentenced to or served a term of imprisonment, being convicted of a serious tax offence or an offence involving fraud or dishonesty, being penalised for promoting a tax exploitation scheme, being subject to any disciplinary action by a court, regulator, government body or professional association, being subject to current complaints or investigations by a regulator, government body or professional association. You must also confirm that you do not have any outstanding tax obligations for yourself or any related party. So what that means is you must have all your lodgements up to date and also pay any tax debt. If you don't have anything to report, click no and continue. If you do have something to report, make sure you include full details in the required field in your renewal form. You will also be required to explain why the matters reported should not adversely affect your eligibility to be registered with us. Once you have completed the detail, click next to continue. Okay, making a payment. Okay, so next, make sure you review your renewal before making payments, as changes will not be possible once the form has been submitted. Before you submit your renewal, you must pay your application fee in full. As Deborah mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the fees for annual registration are $273 for tax agents and $54 for BAS agents. Importantly, this includes indexation or CPI for 2024 year. The form contains payment instructions and will direct you to the government EasyPay or BPay website where you can complete your payment. Once paid, enter the details of your payment, such as the date of payment, receipt number, and an amount without including the $sign or decimal points. You'll then need to attach a copy of your receipt by clicking on Add File. You will notice here that the payments were made to the ATO. This does create some confusion, but we're working towards a solution for this issue. Once we've completed this section, click next to continue. The final step in the renewal process is the declaration. Be sure to complete the declaration page and submit your application, because even if your payment has been accepted, your application is not complete and we cannot process it until the declaration is completed and the renewal form is submitted. So in terms of when everything's been submitted correctly, you will receive a submission number followed by an email copy of your submission. So, and you'll also get a congratulations, you've completed your renewal process successfully. I'm just going to hand it over to Julie now.
Thanks, Christine. That was really helpful information. I just also want to point out that some of the great resources that we have to assist people are available on our website. So you can go to tpb.gov.au/renewal. So there's lots of really helpful information on there to assist people getting through their registration, and also tells you all the information that you need to have on hand, as Deborah said, and I think Christine also covered that. It's really helpful to have all of this information available to you when you log in. It just speeds up the process of renewing your application there. So I think it's time to have a look at some of the questions that we've had coming through. Just before we do go to that though, I just wanted to ask Christine, sorry, is it Christine or Deborah that I'm going to ask this one to? I think it's Deborah. So I think, Deborah, that you've recently renewed your registration. So I was just hoping if you could let us know about your hands-on experience and just share some of the extra tips that you may have come across to assist our tax practitioners when it's time for them to renew their registration.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Look, as I said, I know the guideline says up to 30 minutes, but I think we've been very generous in that 30 minutes because I think we're taking into consideration there that you go, oh, I need to go get my PI insurance policy and check that, and what professional associations do I belong to, and get, you know, the evidence and things like that. So if you've got all of those things with you, like just get prepared beforehand, it actually is a really easy process. It's pre-filled. You know, it's certainly much better than it was. Oh gosh, I'm remembering back in 2010 or something like that. So, you know, really, guys, give it a go. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the changes that we've made to it. But just be prepared. It's like any form, right? If you don't have the information, it's going to take longer.
Wonderful. Thanks, Deborah. I think that's the key message, isn't it, today, is just be prepared and have a look at the things that you need before you're logging in, and then it'll just be fairly streamlined and quick for everyone to proceed with that. Next, I just wanted to look at some of the common queries that arise in relation to renewal. First of all, we've received some feedback about payments and invoicing, and I know that you've touched on this, Christine, but I'm just wondering if you could give us a quick overview of the issue that does arise, and explain what we're doing in this space to make improvements for tax practitioners.
Thanks, Julie. At the moment, all payments for registration and renewal are made to the ATO. So as the payments are made directly to the ATO, there's an inability to issue real-time receipts. However, in terms of the improvements in this space, the TPB's financial independence from the ATO will be enhanced as part of the government's reform agenda by establishing our own account. This will allow separate funding for the TPB for specific purposes, and we will look to enhance the process of renewal by issuing automated invoicing, as well as, I'm going to say, more streamlined payment systems.
Fantastic. That's good to know. Thanks, Christine. And we'll also make sure that we keep everyone up to date on any future improvements that happen in that space as well. Are you also, oh, sorry, Deborah, go.
Can I just add to that? You know, Christine's mentioned that the TPB, we will now be getting our very own bank account. So please double check your payments when you make them to make sure that the details that you're paying to are in fact the right details. So just when you do your renewal, just double check the payment details when you do it. That's all.
No problems. Thanks, Deborah. So, Christine, are you able to provide some information about another common concern from tax practitioners around renewal dates? In particular, can a tax practitioner align their renewal dates if they have both an individual and a company partnership registration? We've received quite a few questions about that, so it'd be great if you could cover that.
Sure, Julie. We are unable to align registration expiry dates across different registrations. The only way this can happen is when we receive and process both the new individual and or new company or partnership application at the same time. It's really based on when you actually lodge the date, and the system cannot, and the legislation will not let us move those dates.
Thanks, Christine. I think that clarifies that for us. Thank you. Just before we do go to our audience questions, I did have one more topic that I just wanted to cover, and it does come up quite a bit, and that's the ability to suppress your address in the TPB Public Register. And I have actually noticed we've had a few questions today about that as well. So I know that this is a bit sensitive for some people too, Deborah. So if you could just outline what the regulations allow for us to do in that space, I think that would be a really helpful, helpful tip for people as well.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And yeah, it is a really hot topic, but it's also a really sensitive topic. The Tax Agent Services Act tells us what information we need to show on the TPB register, and that does include contact details for all our registered tax and BAS agents. But we do know that there are always circumstances that fall outside of that remit. So if there is a reason why you would like to have your address suppressed, please give us a call. We will assess every request on a case-by-case basis. We can put it as a PO box, or, as I said, in special circumstances, we can suppress them for safety reasons. So, you know, if you do have any additional evidence, not that it's specifically required, but if you have a court order or something like that, please give it to us, or you know, be able to prove to us that you've got it and it's absolutely a fake and play. We will, you know, look after you. Your safety is paramount to us.
Thanks, Deborah.
Can I just add,
oh, sure.
The easiest way to request it, a change based on circumstances, is again, just use the Contact Us form in the website.
Thanks, Christine. We'll send a link to everyone so that they can find that form too after the webinar today. Deborah, I've just got a question here, which is in relation to personal tax obligations. And I've got a tax practitioner who's asking if they have a tax payment plan in place with the ATO, does that allow them to still proceed with their registration?
Yes, it does. It does. You have complied with your tax obligations, but you still need to disclose to us that it is that you are in a payment plan. And in fact, if you go into a payment plan during your registration period, you need to contact us and let us know that you have gone into a payment plan.
Thanks, Deborah. I've got a question as well from Susan, who's asking about CPE, and she's just curious, the 3-year CPE period, is that calculated over a financial year or a anniversary date for your registration?
Well, you can choose. So we changed the requirements a couple of years ago now. So you can either go calendar year, financial year, or registration year, whatever works easiest for you, or your professional association year is often a good one, because that way you're, you know, doing 2 with 1.
Excellent, thank you. Christine, I've got a question for you now, and it's about registrations and having multiple registrations, I guess. And the question is, under what circumstances am I required to have 2 registrations in place?
Yeah, if you register as a company or a partnership, you need to have a sufficient number of registered individuals who carry out supervisory arrangements on behalf of the business. For example, if you operate your business through a company, the company will need to be registered and you will need to be registered as an individual as well. Or the company will need to have other registered individuals who can carry out supervisory arrangements on its behalf.
Thanks, Christine.
Can I just add to that? You know, companies and individuals are separate legal entities, right? So number one, I think that's probably the short answer on that. But the second part of that is that companies have additional requirements. And so the companies have to have a sufficient number of individuals. And that can change. Individuals can go between companies. Individuals can be supervising agents for multiple companies. So all of those things we need to be able to track and make sure that there is suitable supervision for each tax agent or BAS agent registration.
Great, thank you. Next question I've got is for you again, Christine, and this one is the requirements to renew appear to include a condition concerning the number of hours worked in the preceding 5 years. If this is correct, how is this to be assessed and how do we provide evidence for that?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. To renew your individual registration, you need to confirm your relevant experience. The amount of relevant experience you require is dependent on the registration option you choose when you first register with us. You are simply required to confirm you meet this requirement at renewal. However, for any reason you have not met the relevant experience requirement, then you need to get in touch with us.
Great, thank you. Deborah, I've had a few people asking me about recognised professional associations and the fact of whether that's mandatory or not. Is it compulsory to be a member? Could you just go into that with a little bit of detail?
Yeah, look, no, it's not compulsory to be a member unless you selected that pathway when you originally registered with the TPB. But other than that, no, it's not a requirement.
Okay, great, thank you. And Deborah, I've had a couple of people just asking that their fees are actually currently $783 and it's not coming up as $273. Can you just explain the fee structure again? Like that's only coming into place from 1 July, is that correct?
Just did it, yes. So if you renew before on or before the 30th of June, it's using the old fee, so the 3-year fee, and you will be registered for 3 years. As of the 1st of July, that's when the new annual registration comes in, and therefore the fee is divided by 3. Now, I've noticed in the chat, some people said, oh, last time I renewed it was X amount, and that's not, 1/3, it's 16% or whatever. There is a CPI increase every year. So it is, it's government. CPI increase happens across the board. It's not just the TPB, it's ASIC and all the other regulators as well. So that's why when you look at it, it didn't look like exactly 1/3. But yes, as of the 1st of July, the website will be updated, the amount will be updated and prorated from that point forward.
Thanks, Deborah, that's helpful. I've got a few people asking about whether or not the form saves when they're doing their renewal. Can they come away and return to the form? Yes, you can save it and return. That's not a problem at all. Next, I've got a question, Christine, for you. Are directors of a tax agent company required to be registered?
Yes, okay. The Tax Agent Services Act, the TASA, does not require directors to be registered. However, as we discussed, all companies and partnerships must have a sufficient number of suitably registered individuals connected to the entity to provide adequate supervision and control of the practice.
And I think the other thing on there is a registration requirement is that all directors of the company are fit and proper people.
Absolutely.
So even though they don't have to be a registered tax agent, they still need to meet the fit and proper requirements.
Thanks, Deborah. I've got some people also just wanting a bit more clarification around membership of a professional association. They're not quite sure what that means in terms of if you've used it as part of your registration. Can you just explain what the pathways are?
Christine, do you want to do that? You know the pathways really well.
Sure. There are 10 pathways to becoming a tax practitioner and 2 pathways to becoming a BAS agent. One of the pathways, it's Regulation 206, and that requires the voting membership as part of your registration requirement. and also a regulation 102 of a BAS agent to be a voting member as part of your registration.
Great, thanks for that. The next one's again for you, Christine. What happens if the renewal hasn't been approved for whatever reason?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. If your application's rejected, we'll advise you of the reasons of your decision, of our decision, and your appeal rights. We'll also notify the ATO of our decision. Yeah, that's it.
That's it, simple?
That's
okay,
it. We'll just
great.
tell you, tell you the reasons for the decision.
Wonderful, thank you for that. The next question I've got is asking, I'm an individual tax agent at the moment and want to transfer into a company structure. What do I need to do in terms of getting that underway? Probably best for Christine to answer that one.
Sure. So you're an individual and you now want to be registered as a company. So you would lodge a new application form as a company, and you would use your individual registration to be a supervising agent. There's certain requirements for company registration. You will need to meet those. There's quite a number of things you need to comply with, and they're all on the website. And we use the website as our single source of truth. And you would just go through the normal application process for a company and get your business approved.
Great, thank you so much for that. Okay, next question, Deborah, it's around CPE, and I've just got someone asking here, how does the 3-year period apply now that it's annual registration? I think you sort of covered this, but if you could just go into that one again, we've had a few questions.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. We are still looking at it as 120 hours for tax agents or 90 hours for BAS agents over the 3-year period. We haven't made it an annual, like 40 hours or 30 hours. We do recognise that sometimes life gets in the way. You might want to take a few months off and have an overseas holiday, or, have a child, or, something like that. So we are still doing it at this stage over the 3-year period.
Thanks, Deborah. I've got Stephen just asking about the annual declaration. We have talked about it today and said that it is going to be retired. Could you just tell us when that takes effect?
Oh, I can do that.
Thanks,
straight away. Straight away. Now that we've announced annual registration, we actually paused annual declarations due to COVID. And we have now retired annual declarations because we've introduced, or the government has introduced, annual registration, and it would be a duplicate of services if we were to keep annual declarations.
Thank you, that's great. I might ask this one of you, Deborah, because I know that you've been in this situation before, and it's can a BAS agent apply for a tax agent registration?
Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. If you've got the experience and the qualifications and professional membership, if that's the pathway you're looking at taking, absolutely, you can apply. And one of the things that I've seen quite a lot come up in the chat today was, do I need to have both? No, you don't. BAS agent is a subset of a tax agent, so you don't need to have both.
Thanks, Deborah. And we've got lots of information on the website about what the requirements are to register. So if you do have further questions, just jump on the website and have a look there. It tells you everything you need to apply and to be eligible for registration.
Julie, can I ask Christine one question?
Of course you can.
Oh, that's tricky.
Christine, a lot of people have been asking, and I don't know the answer. How do they know when their registration's due? What's the best way to find out?
Okay, the best way is always have your address and email address and phone number up to date with us, and do that through my profile or through contact us in the website. So once we have all that information, we will send you at least, well, almost 90 days before your registration is due, and an email. And in that email, there is a link to my profile, and it also highlights and states all the different registration requirements that you need to maintain. Then probably at the 60-day mark, we might send another form of correspondence, and then again at the 30-day mark, just before registration. And it might be an SMS as well.
And if I wanted to go now and find out when my registration expires, so I can be prepared and put it in my diary, what's the best way?
I think the best way is look on the public register. If you go into the public register on the website and type in your name, and then go into your details, there is a part that actually gives you the date of when your renewal is ready to be, it has the expiry date of the renewal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, because we've had a few people asking that, and your registration renewal date only appears on my profile 90 days before it's ready to renew. So if it's not there, you can't see it. So the register's absolutely the place to go to find that out.
All right. So if it's due more than 90 days away, it won't be in my profile, but
that's
it will
right.
be on the public register.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got someone here asking as well about the pathways again for registration. They said that they've registered many years ago, so they're just curious to find out what pathway they did register under. Is that on my profile? Can they check that there?
It actually isn't on my profile.
It's not?
I think it's, no, it's not. I'll get back to you on where that is.
We can respond to that one.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thanks, Christine.
I guess
That's great.
In the meantime, if we haven't got the FAQs, if anyone wants to know the contact forms, really, as with everything Christine's told us today, the best way for us to get it to the team, and I can get back to you.
Yep, no problems. I've got someone asking about whether the webinar is being recorded, and yes, it absolutely is. So we'll pop that up on our YouTube channel in the next day or so, and you can actually get CPE for watching it. And another good tip there as well is if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will get a notification each time we put up a new webinar or any other video that we have available as well. So it's a good way to just keep up to date on that sort of stuff as well. Okay, what else have we got? I've had someone asking about the practitioner symbol as well, and they're just concerned about putting that on their publications because it has their registration number on there. Deborah, could you maybe go into that? I don't think there's any real concerns about putting that on your publications at all.
No, the registration number or your registered number is publicly available information anyway. It is on our register, and it is legislated that it needs to be on our register. So putting it, having it in your symbol, it's just another way of promoting, but it does help any potential client or client wanting to just double check that you are registered. It is a really quick and easy way, rather than spelling your name wrong or putting your company details in rather than your personal, etc. So if you give them the number, it makes it a little bit easier for them.
Great, thanks for that. Just one last question, and I might put this one to you, Christine. It's just about the pathways to register as a tax practitioner. Is it possible for a practitioner to switch between different pathways when they're renewing their registration, or do they need to apply as a new application to do that?
Okay. Once you're registered, you would want to stay registered. Unless your circumstances change, then you would be talking to us about those circumstance changes. Normally at a new registration, that's when you'll decide which your qualifications and experience meet the different pathways. So with a registered tax practitioner, if they want to change their pathways, they should talk to us and we can work through how to do that and what that would mean to their registration. And they would again have to look at the website to make sure that they have all the requirements for that registration pathway.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Christine. So I think that's all we've got time for now with the questions. So just quickly give you some information on how to stay in touch with us. Obviously, as we've talked about today, the website is a great resource for you. So if you just wanted to go to tpb.gov.au, you can have a look at all the resources we have available there. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. We also have a newsletter that goes out each month, which is TPB e-news, and you can subscribe to that at tpb.gov.au/newsroom. As I mentioned before, we have our YouTube channel, and I would highly encourage you to subscribe to that so that you can see our webinar recordings and any other videos that we have for you there, and you can claim your CPE. So I just wanted to say now a big thank you to Deborah and to Christine for sharing their insights with us today. And also thank you to Madeline and Rodney for assisting with the questions as well. That was really helpful. So we do hope that you found the webinar beneficial. And as we said, it does count towards your CPE and you can claim 1 hour for attending today's webinar. And last thing, just before we do finish up today, I will be launching an exit survey and we do appreciate your feedback and the time that it takes for you to complete it. It's very quick, only takes less than a minute to complete, but it does really help us in terms of looking at different topics and ways to improve on the webinar. So that will just pop up in your browser. And as I said, it would be great if you could complete that. So once again, thanks everyone for joining us today. And we do hope to connect with you all again soon. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.